This video highlights the second half of the 1974's exciting first-round NFL draft. At number 14, the Denver Broncos were on the clock and knocked it out of the park with the selection of Hall of Fame middle linebacker Randy Gradishar from The Ohio State University. He was a big play player. Broncos 1976 head coach John Ralston marveled at the play of his middle linebacker, who finished in sixth place in the 1973 Heisman Trophy vote. As a rookie, Gradishar wore number 52, but switched to number 53 in 1975 and wore it for the remainder of his 10-year career, in which he made 7 Pro Bowl teams and 5 first or second All-Pro teams. In 1977, he finished third in the NFL Defensive Player of the Year award, and in 1978, he won it. Per the Pro Football Hall of Fame website, in his 145 games played, Gradishar averaged an amazing 14.1 tackles per game. Grades in this video are based upon the entirety of a player's career, and Gradishar receives an A+. Teaser alert. Stick around for another Hall of Fame draft pick a little bit later down the line. The 15th pick was obtained by the Chargers in the September 6, 1973 trade involving linebacker Bob Babbage, who was shipped to Cleveland. Kansas linebacker Don Goode was selected with this draft pick. Goode was a defensive lineman in college and said, "My senior year was my worst in college. I was shocked to be drafted in the first round." He played weak side linebacker in the East-West Shrine game and said, "Nobody was blocking on me. I had a lot of tackles that day, and my ratings for the draft shot sky high." Goode was a full-time starter for 5 years, intercepted 10 passes, and had 9 sacks. B- grade. The Kansas City Chiefs were missing a breakaway running back ever since they traded Mike Garrett in 1970. They got their man in Arizona State's Woody Green, who was a 2-time consensus All-American. He rushed for over 1,100 yards in each of his 3 collegiate seasons, and at 6 foot 205 pounds, he was quite a bit bigger than Mike Garrett. Green was depicted on the Sports Illustrated November 18, 1974 edition, and for good reason. Green may not have caught everything in sight at practice, but he caught 58 passes in 28 regular season games played with a respectable 9.7 yards per catch. Unfortunately, Green missed 14 games due to multiple knee injuries and surgeries during his 3-year NFL career. While he had 2,004 scrimmage yards, I grade his career as an incomplete due to the injuries. Meanwhile, the Falcons completed a trade with the Vikings on May 14, 1973. Atlanta intended to move on from number 7 quarterback Pat Sullivan, who was their 1972 second-round draft pick, who didn't start any games in 1972 and 1973. They traded their 1974 first-round pick with quarterback Bob Berry, originally a 1964 11th-round draft pick, for Vikings quarterback Bob Lee, originally a 17th-round draft pick, along with linebacker Lonnie Warwick. The Vikings selected linebacker Fred McNeill from UCLA with this draft pick. McNeill was an 8-year full-time starter and played 12 seasons with Minnesota. He had 7 interceptions and 16 fumble recoveries. In Super Bowl XI, McNeill became the first player to block a punt by future Hall of Famer Ray Guy. Here he helped to stuff Ricky Young on a 4th and goal to go play. McNeill's brother Rod was also drafted in 1974. The Saints picked him in the 4th round. Although he had a few highlights, his career wasn't nearly as good as brother Fred's B-graded career. Buffalo Bills tight ends from 1970 through 1973 failed to produce one that caught even 15 passes in any of those seasons. So they turned to Oklahoma State's Ruben Gant. He didn't become a full-time starter until 1978, and in 7 seasons with Buffalo, he only had 2 where he caught more than 20 passes. He caught 15 touchdown passes for 1,850 yards. Grade? Perhaps a generous C-. At number 19, the Raiders selected an eventual 3-time Super Bowl champion at right tackle. Henry Lawrence played 13 seasons with the Silver and Black, and principal owner and general manager Al Davis. He played in 187 games, made the AFC Pro Bowl team in 1983 and 1984, and is deserving of a solid B-plus grade, just shy of an A- since he never made an All-Pro team. Head coach Abe Gibron's 1973 Bears gave up the 2nd most rushing yards in the NFL. So new general manager Jim Finks drafted defensive end Dave Gallagher out of Michigan. On September 3, 1975, the Bears traded him to the Giants for wide receiver Bob Grimm and a draft choice. In his 2nd season with the Giants, he started 10 games at defensive tackle, where he was undersized and ineffective. He was benched for the remainder of the season, then retired in order to pursue a medical career. In 1978, he was traded to the Lions and came out of retirement, but only played in 1 game due to a knee injury. He played in 10 games in 1979, then called it quits. In a quirky career that is somewhat difficult to grade, I assign a C-, which could be a generous grade. With the 21st pick, the Steelers struck it rich with wide receiver Lynn Swann. He was an All-American at USC and became one of the primary reasons for the Steelers' Super Bowl victories. In Super Bowls 10, 13, and 14, he combined for 16 catches, 364 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He made a variety of circus catches to swing games into the Steelers' favor. He started off slowly as a rookie, however, and he only started 2 games. But he was an adept punt returner, and his 577 return yards set an NFL record. Head coach Tom Landry wanted a running back at number 22. So the Cowboys selected 6'1", 215-pounder Charley Young, who played at North Carolina State. In 1972 and 1973, his head coach was Lou Holtz, the same Lou Holtz that resigned with a 3-win and 10-loss record for the 1976 New York Jets. Holtz said, "God did not put Lou Holtz on this earth to coach in the pros." Young had 4.6 speed in the 40, but tore his medial collateral ligament in his left knee during 1977's training camp and was placed on the injured reserve list for the entire season. He couldn't beat out number 21 Doug Dennison during the 1978 training camp and was cut. He started 3 games in 3 years and scored 4 touchdowns. Tough break with the injury, but this is a D grade. Here's another low grade. The Bengals drafted defensive tackle Bill Kollar out of that football hotbed named Montana State. His draft stock shot through the roof when he became the first defensive player to win the Senior Bowl game MVP in January 1974. Although he made the NFL All-Rookie team in 1974, he never started for an entire season in his 8-year career. The Buccaneers claimed him on waivers September 8, 1977. Grade C-. He was a defensive line coach from 1990 through 2022 for 5 NFL teams, which would have earned him an A in that coaching capacity. The Baltimore Colts obtained the 24th pick in a 1972 trade with the Rams that involved offensive lineman John Williams, himself a number 1 pick in 1968. The Rams had already traded their number 1 picks in 1972 and 1973, so the Colts received the Rams' number 1 pick 2 years after the trade. The Colts nabbed wide receiver Roger Carr from Louisiana Tech. He had a phenomenal 1976 season in which he caught 11 touchdown passes on only 43 receptions for 1,112 yards, an incredible average of 25.9 yards per catch. Over 10 seasons, he hauled in 5,071 yards of catches. B+ grade. Quarterback Fran Tarkenton needed younger blood at left tackle in 1974 because starter Grady Alderman was age 35 heading into the season. Head coach Bud Grant gave a half smile, and the Vikings selected USC tackle Steve Riley. Fellow USC alum and tackle Ron Yeri was the Vikings' first selection in the 1968 NFL/AFL draft. In fact, he was the first offensive lineman ever drafted first overall in an NFL draft. Riley was traded to the Saints in 1980 for 1980 third and fifth round picks. He was returned to the Vikings after he failed their physical examination. The Saints were allowed to obtain the Vikings' third and fifth picks in the 1981 draft. From 1980 through 1984, Riley only missed 1 start. So how bad off physically could he have been? 11 years, 128 games started, B grade. Not exactly a Ranieri Hall of Fame career, but not bad. By the way, the number 3 draft pick by the Saints was tight end Hobie Brenner, who played 13 seasons for them and made the 1987 Pro Bowl. The Dolphins' Don Shula had a keen eye for talent, and he selected 6'6", 255-pounder defensive lineman Don Reese from Jackson State with the final pick in the first round. He was released on August 1st, 1977, and served 1 year in jail for the sale of something that was illegal. The Saints signed him on August 23, 1978, and Miami received their 1979 third-round draft pick as compensation. The Dolphins selected tight end Ronnie Lee, converted him to an offensive lineman, and he played 10 years in Miami. Meanwhile, Reese got in trouble again and was suspended from November 26, 1980 through the end of the season. The Saints released him on May 31, 1981, and he signed with the Chargers as a free agent. He played 5 games, and that was that for him in the NFL. He had 30.5 sacks, 12 alone in 1979, but a promising career was mostly spoiled. He played for the 1985 Birmingham Stallions of the USFL. I grade his career a D because so much of it was squandered.